Hey beautiful people, my name is Jamie and thank you so much for checking out my channel. This channel is all about getting you connected to God and godly people to help you grow in your faith. Today I'm joined by somebody special.
What's up, Jamie J?
Who are you?
My name's Javier B. Edwards. I am Jamie's husband.
Yes, you are. This is my hubby. And I'm so happy to have him here today. He's back and we're going to be talking about something very special. Are you interested in finding out what are some Christian dating boundaries that worked for us? If you are in the right place. Continue watching so you can find out exactly what are the Christian boundaries that we set and why they were successful. If you haven't already, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss out on awesome videos just like this one that we drop in the future. Let's go ahead and define what boundaries are. What are boundaries, babe?
I would say boundaries are limits. Limits that you place on a relationship that are lines that are pretty much communicating we don't go beyond this point. Mm-hmm. This is how far we go in this particular area.
Exactly.
That's what I would say boundary is, a limit.
Yep. Let's get right into our first boundary. So the first boundary that I want to talk about is making sure that your relationship is God focused rather than you focused, right? So that doesn't mean that your relationship isn't a priority, but it means that God is the first priority in your relationship.
I mean, that has to be the point, right? That has to be the point. What is the point of ever being in a relationship at all? I think for me, at least the approach I came to the relationship with was the point of me being married in the first place is to glorify God.
Yeah. So
for me to now then get into a relationship and make that person the main priority over God, it's oxymoron. It's an oxymoron, right? It's not something you should do. So it keeps the main thing, the glory of God. And that's not only is that okay, it's also one of the best ways to get to what you want to get to get to the relationship that you want to be in, right? To get to that marriage, so.
Yeah. And, we're Christians, we're followers of Jesus. So the way that the reason why we were even attracted to each other was because we were followers of Jesus. I don't honestly know if we would be in a relationship if we weren't, if we both didn't share those values. So one example in our relationship, I remember when we were dating / courting, we would go to the gym every evening. Yeah. And I realized I'm not spending time with God like I used to.
Yeah.
And, I talked to Jay about this and he had similar sentiments, and we decided that we were going to go to the gym in the morning and seek the Lord during the evenings. As in studying it together and, just dissecting the scripture and really making sure that we were understanding it and applying it.
Spiritually healthy.
Exactly.
Really spiritually healthy.
Exactly. And I can tell you honestly, that was such a breakthrough moment for our relationship. Just being honest with each other about hey, we're doing great. We looked amazing. Okay. We were looking good. Okay. Yeah. But it didn't feel great to me because I knew that my first love was the Lord. And the reason why we were in a relationship was because of God. And so I think, that's something that we want to share with you all because we were there, right? And we know what it's like to have your priorities on something else and shift so significantly because you get into a relationship, that it can be kind of easy to put God on, a back burner, and we don't want you to do that.
So another boundary that I think is important to discuss early, one that we didn't discuss early, but eventually we talked about, and I think it was helpful, are financial boundaries. And what am I saying by financial boundaries? How are you going to spend money in this relationship, in this courtship, in this engagement, whatever you're going to call it? How are you going to spend money? Mm-hmm. Do you as the woman expect me as the man to pay for every date? Is that the expectation?
You actually asked me that on our first date.
Because it's important to know, how do you expect money to be spent? You know, do you expect me to buy things for you? Are we gonna both save towards marriage? Like, where is money gonna come from, and how are we gonna use it, right? I think it's extremely important to talk about, because it's building the foundation of the marriage, right?
Yep.
That's how I think about. That's what I was trying to say. That's how I think about sort of courtships and even engagements to some degree. Like, the point of it is to build and strengthen and fortify the foundation for the marriage.
Yeah.
Right. So talking about finances early, setting boundaries. Like, look, if this is the amount that I expect us to save each paycheck. This is how I expect, us. This is how much money I expect us to spend at restaurants. Here's who will pay. I'll pay, you pay. Like, talk about that stuff super, super early, because it will make things way less confusing further down the road.
Exactly. Are you all on the same page when it comes to finances? And I think this is also a great point where it's an open field for you to go ahead and ask, hey, do you have any student loans that I should know about? And that's important, because you want to begin talking about, okay, well, this is how I'm stewarding my finances so that I can make sure that I'm actually getting out of debt, not getting into more debt, right? So if you are wanting to pursue marriage with someone, that's so important that you understand their psychology and the way they even go about finances, because it's okay if you go about finances differently, but you need to know that early on so that you can prepare for that in marriage.
Absolutely.
Thankfully, you and I, we think very similarly when it comes to finances. We're pretty shrewd, honestly.
We're cheap.
Yeah, we are. I like to see my money in the account. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like to see it stacking up on credit cards. And I understand, not everyone, well, I guess everyone has a choice, but not everyone's circumstances lend to them having a large savings account, and I understand that, and I want to respect where you're at. Maybe you had to take student loans because guess what? You didn't have, anyone at home, saving up so that you can go to college, or different circumstances that came up. So I totally understand that there are things that come up that you have to do what you have to do. But in terms of a relationship, I think all of that has to be brought to the table before marriage. So the third and final boundary that we have for you all is setting physical boundaries.
Physical boundaries are slept on, I think. And I think people underestimate the damage that the lack of having physical boundaries can cause to a relationship, right?
Yeah.
And the things that you'll end up doing prematurely. And I'm certain of it. Look, it's not a matter of, are we going to be tempted to have sex, right? The question is, when we are tempted to have sex, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're in a relationship where you're building rapport, you're speaking with this person all the time, hanging out with them all the time, growing in romance with them all the time, the temptation is going to strike.
Absolutely.
The question is, when it does, were you prepared, right?
Yeah.
Were there any type of boundaries in place to prevent you from just free falling into sin, right? That's the point. That's the point of the boundary, in my opinion, is to
I
just
agree.
keep you from free. It's another layer of conviction, right? So for us, some physical boundaries that we did, babe, I don't know if you remember, we didn't kiss.
Nope.
We didn't kiss. We didn't even hug for the first 6 months of the relationship.
We didn't hug.
No, we did hug. We didn't hold hands.
We didn't hold hands
for the first 6 months, but we hugged.
No, we didn't hug. We didn't hold
hug.
hands for the first 3 months.
3 months, yeah.
And then I remember when I held your hand, I did it by accident.
Yeah,
It was just and you're like, it's okay. It's good.
Because by that point, I think we were cool with it. But
yeah,
that's how, just to show you how serious we took it from the beginning. We didn't say it, but obviously
having sex.
No sex. You know
no,
what I'm saying?
we actually did say it.
Yeah.
Our first date. We were just going over our boundaries, and you were telling me hey, I think we should wait until we actually get married to kiss. And I was just yeah, cool. I like that, because that was something I had thought about before. Would I kiss in a relationship? So I was perfectly okay with waiting. One thing that we didn't talk about, though, that I wish we did set a boundary on, was hugging. because I think with hugging, it's like, okay, like I can just hug you, and you don't think it's a big deal until
tighter and tighter.
As the intimacy grows, your desire to be physically intimate grows. Let's be real.
Fire.
It starts like just growing. So I did realize, like, once we got engaged, it was just like our hugs got longer, they got deeper. And so thankfully we were able to, because we had set such strict boundaries, we weren't kissing, and we had of course decided that
speaking sexually to
we weren't speaking. I mean? No, we definitely weren't.
There was no sexual pursuit. One was not to pursue one sexually.
Yeah.
In our relationship.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So that was like the overarching boundary with those subcategories.
Yeah. And I want to let you guys know, like, we were tempted. Does that make sense? Like, we wanted to have sex with each other. It's not like we are these anomalies and we were just like, yes, Lord, I'm floating, I'm holy. That wasn't the case. Like, we wanted to be with one another. But I think even more so, I wanted to please God. Like, I wanted to say, you know what, Lord? Like, I respected this man so much so because he's your son. And I want to make sure that we're glorifying you in our relationship so that it can be a testimony for people to know, like, no, this is possible.
I mean, for me, sex is for marriage, right? This belongs in marriage, and I had done it outside of marriage, and it had detrimental results. Yeah. Simply put, sex is reserved for marriage, right? That's the place for that fire to safely burn and not consume.
I agree. I agree. And I think even as you're brainstorming and you're thinking, like, okay, like, how far is too far? I know that sex out of marriage is out of bounds, but what about kissing and hugging? And exactly like what you guys were saying, I think it's very important that you and your partner talk about how can we best go about glorifying God and making sure that we're in a position to best protect our relationship, so that if for some reason it doesn't work, we still respected each other, so that you're not doing something with someone else's spouse, right? So if for some reason the relationship doesn't work, you're not thinking in the back of your head, dang, like, I ain't gonna have no new experiences with, for my husband. So, and I want to make sure that there's grace even in that dialogue, because, like Jay, like you shared, like, you were sexually active before we got married, but I believe that even in our marriage, we've experienced that, like, God is able to make everything new. And so I don't want people to feel condemnation if they have already, had sex, whether it's in this relationship or in another one. But I just want to stress to you guys that if you're watching this video before you've even gotten to a relationship, or before you've even crossed, some lines, that you start thinking about, okay, how can I make sure that I'm glorifying God in this relationship? Reply in the comments and let us know which of these tips or Christian boundaries you plan on incorporating to make sure that you have a healthy and successful relationship that glorifies God. If you like this video, make sure that you hit the like button and share it with anyone you know, and subscribe if you haven't done so already.
And if you have any video suggestions or topic suggestions you'd like for me and Jamie to tackle, we'd love to hear about those in the comments.
Thanks so much for joining us. We hope to see you in the next one. Bye.